I have exposed myself to every form of disease, accident, and violence. I have driven myself to delight in dirty and disgusting debauches, and to devour human excrements and human flesh. I have mastered every mode of my mind, and made myself a morality more severe than any other in the world. 1,000 years from now, the world will be sitting in the sunset of Crowleyanity.
He could simply say, I have action. A magician, the magic cults of the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th centuries in the Middle East were fascinating.
I believe he was the real thing. He had given himself under demonic control. He was evil.
The only modern work that has anything to do with them is trifle wild in spots, but it's fascinating work in itself, and that's work written by Aleister Crowley, the late Aleister Crowley, my very good friend.
Really the basis of Scientology, which is rather hidden and covered over, is the occult, the deep involvement with satanic powers. That he felt that he was deeply involved with a British black magician called Aleister Crowley, and through putting himself in deep hypnotic trances and the use of drugs on himself, he wanted to become the most powerful being in the world.
To do that, you've got to release a lot of other spirits of one sort or another. Even in broad daylight, the room he was working in became almost pitch dark, and he had to light candles and this sort of thing to continue what he was about.
We've reconstructed another training routine from the notes Ali made immediately afterwards. She had to stare fixedly into someone's eyes for over an hour. She even found herself hallucinating.
The staring routines were supposed to make you feel comfortable being with other people, just looking at them. The more you looked at someone, sometimes they changed shape. They grew scales, became like a lizard, or changed from negatives to positives. It was a really strange experience.
I'll tell you, when I was a kid I read Robert Anton Wilson and all this, and here we are, we're standing here, we're talking about this, and it's real. If you do these things that you're told by Aleister Crowley, if you actually do what they say, things happen. Things occur exactly as it's described, and we can all do it.
He was willing to use any forces that he possibly could, that he could control.
Crowley decided to perform the Abramelin, a black magic ritual that no magician had dared undertake for centuries. The Abramelin dates back to the 14th century. The aim of the 6-month ritual is to master demons, but it was considered extremely dangerous. If the ritual went wrong, it was believed that evil spirits could be set loose and take possession of the magician. It was at this point that Crowley met Rose Kelly, a young society lady. Courting scandal, he married her the day after they met and took her off to Egypt for their honeymoon, leaving the Abramelin ritual unfinished.
While visiting Egypt in 1904, Crowley's first wife, Rose, began going into spontaneous trances, muttering things like, "They are waiting for you," and "He who was waiting was Horus." Intrigued, Crowley and Rose went to visit the Cairo Museum. From a distance she spied a glass case and exclaimed, there he is." Upon inspection, the case did contain an image of Horus painted on a wooden stele, but what particularly stunned Crowley was its exhibit number, 666, his number, the number of the beast.
Crowley heard an unearthly voice from over his left shoulder. For 1 hour, at precisely the same time over the next 3 days, Crowley said that the voice dictated to him the book of the law, the work that would become the Bible of his new religion.
And the content of this revelation? "I am the snake that giveth knowledge," the Spirit said. "To worship me, take wine and strange drugs, whereof I will tell my prophet.
The book of the law, it just really is ripping up everything. It's ripping up the Bible, it's ripping up the Quran, you know, it's ripping up all the holy books and saying we're starting fresh now. This is the word of the new eon. We're going to peck out the eyes of Christ on the cross. It's very, very blasphemous. It's all about liberation. It's all about having no restrictions at all. You follow your path, you follow your goal in life, and you do that above all else.
Randy is the mother of 7-year-old Kennedy. Sharon is the mother of 10-year-old Kelly. Ladies, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having us.
Tammy, let me begin with you because Kennedy was only 5 years old when she started to take your pole dancing class. How does that even happen?
Well, I mean, let me start by saying that this isn't something we didn't one day think that we were going to invite children to class. This has kind of evolved.
The book of the law states, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." In other words, people have the right to determine exactly how to live their lives, regardless of moral and religious boundaries. Crowley saw himself as the prophet of this new creed.
And so I thought, well, why deny children to do something that's physical, that's going to keep them active? Because society says that it's not right. Because really, it isn't. I mean, the association that comes, you hear pole dancing and child in the same sentence, and of course you think negative thoughts. And that's why we call it pole fitness. And it's really nothing then. There's poles in playgrounds, in every playground you go to.
Well, in 1918, Crowley took a great magical oath, which was a serious thing for Crowley. And he took an oath that he would surrender all of his magical powers that he had achieved until that date to concentrate his energy single-pointedly on the one task of destroying Christianity and reviving paganism. And I think if you look around the world, it's pretty obvious that Crowley has been a remarkable success. Paganism has made a big comeback in an organized way. Neo-pagan groups, and in an unorganized way, our whole society has become more pagan.
It all started when the Canadian couple told friends the baby's gender is not only none of the world's business, but that they're also not in a rush to reveal the child's identity to the child. Instead, their hope is that Storm will formulate his or her own definition of gender roles, instead of the roles often pushed onto children by society. They called it then a tribute to freedom and choice in a place of limitation.
Okay, we're talking here about the 666, that's the beast, that's Aleister Crowley himself. Moreover, the B666 advises that all children shall be accustomed from infancy to witness every type of sexual act, as also the process of birth, lest falsehood fog and mystery stupefy their minds, whose error else might thwart and misdirect the growth of their subconscious system of self-symbolism. What we're talking about there is children from birth being exposed to sex.
I've been an admirer of Aleister Crowley. I think that I'm carrying on much of the work that he started over 100 years ago, and I think the 60s themselves. You know, Crowley said he was in favor of finding your own self and do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law under love. It was a very powerful statement.
It is demonstrated in research and the day-to-day world that gender stereotyping causes suffering to both men and women, she said. She then went on to offer her 2- and 5-year-old sons as proof that children don't need sex taught to them in order to feel safe in the world. Both have been encouraged to shun gender norms. Jazz, for example, has long hair that he sometimes likes to wear in pigtails.
I'm sorry he isn't around now to appreciate the glories that he started.
Quite an interesting way for them to express their freedom, as they say.
They won't be able to do it for very long, though.
That's true. Lindsay, thank you.
Alrighty. Did you ever take a bath in a little pool like this?
I sure did.
Little boy?
My brothers and sisters and I all did. Thank you.
There's a special feeling about this.
Did you when you were young?
Oh, yeah. My grandfather, he always allowed me to go in a little pool that he had. But I'd get all soapy, you know, soap suds all over me. And then my grandfather would take this hose and go like this with me. He'd squirt all over me until the soap, you know, he'd rinse the suds off.
So you were playing?
Yeah, my grandfather and I did a lot of playing together. In fact, my grandfather and I loved each other a lot.
The song is pretty much about evolution and the progress. You know, you start out as a new artist and you make your way into the game, and you know, you climb that mountain and then you get to the top and you put your flag down, and that's pretty much us putting our flag down. You know, this is Rock Nation, pledge your allegiance. You like put your flag at the top of the mountain and you say, we run this town.
Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Since his death in 1947, Crowley has become an icon of rebellion. The Rolling Stones, David Bowie, Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page have all been influenced by his message of freedom. He continues to be a key figure in the occult and is a focus for those engaged in the battle between good and evil.
To me, telling us time to get moving towards our destiny. He says, sons, please don't be nervous, for no one gets hurt while in my service. Gentlemen, you are the reptilians we are here to eradicate. My purpose is to eradicate the materialistic reptilians who have acquired power.
Case. This basically, until recently, I thought these news reporters and everything may have been a glitch in regard to the cameras. But after seeing this particular video, I no longer think that. I noticed here, right here, there's a thing changing to his face. You can start to see it in his arm as well, and that's not a tattoo on his left arm. It's actually the thing now starting to appear. You'll now start to see it appearing behind him, but if you notice, it's very clearly attached to his face. Yet no other part of the video except for behind him and his arm. And notice how it moves with him. It's down his leg. You can actually see that this thing is actually clearly attached to him. But notice those two back legs to the rear, and they are actually moving back legs. As he moves, they move. It's not a reverb of him. It's not a digital mistake. I believe the camera has actually picked this up, and I've seen it in the news reports now. Up until recently, I believed that they were fakes, but after I spotted this video myself, I no longer believe them to be fakes. I believe them to be true, that whatever this creature is behind this poor gentleman, it is actually controlling him. I noticed that it started to appear at the same time that he was talking about his own drawings, a vanity. I'm an artist myself, and it's strange, like all of a sudden I get these urges to paint and different things like that, and like all artists, typically I get vain in regard to my work, and I've been wondering myself as to what does this, but when I don't think I've got this problem. I'm a Christian myself, so I'm sort of praying to God that I'm safe, but when I'm looking at this thing behind him, it's some creature. It looks like a creature because it has two back legs. It is attached to him, and if you notice that there is some kind of a head structure, a tail structure, a back rear body structure, and two legs, and then all of a sudden it just disappears, as you just see there. So yeah, it's up to yourself what you think, but yes, I've actually found it, and this is not the actual only one that this poor gentleman is being controlled by one of these beings. And yes, I do believe it to be a being. So there you go, folks. Just a little thing in regard to the reptilian agenda. So